So the expedition is put together, cast of very interesting characters, fly into the United States, are immediately shot down, and land in what they believed was going to be this beautiful advanced society, and instead looks like some sort of crazy, it's a very, very strange place. It's beautiful, but it's also, it doesn't look at anything at all like what the United States was. It's this kind of strange mutated version of it. And so they don't know what they're supposed to do. They don't know what's going to happen to them. And the rest of the story is basically them slowly but surely exploring what the United States is now and what it's become. And it has become an undiscovered country, a totally new place. And so it's kind of a road trip as they go on the spiral to see all the different regions of the United States. We've done the first 6 issues so far, and that is what is collected in this trade that has come out. And it's a great book. We're very proud of it. And that's kind of the elevator pitch. Very, very long elevator ride, but that's the elevator pitch.
Long elevator ride.
Well, yeah. These days, I'm sure the elevator rides are longer, right? So, yeah. So Scott, talk to us about, this is a co-writing project, which is a little unusual for the books I've worked on over the years. But talk to us a little bit about where you guys got the idea for the thing. And I know there's some, there's a real personal connections for you both, and your own connections. If you want to elaborate on some of that.
Yeah, it is. It's a really special book, and I feel really grateful to get to work on it with Charles, who's one of my best friends, and Camo, who, again, one of the best artists in the industry and who's become a good friend. And Will, you've been with me since the very beginning of my career. So the book has always been about teamwork and the idea of people coming together to do something better than they could do alone. Charles and I kind of came up with the idea while we were running together. We made this habit of going to cons together, hanging out, and then if anyone's ever been to a comic book convention, one of the rules we try to keep for ourselves as co-creators to stay sane is to try and get out and leave it and go explore a little bit. So we got in the habit of going on a run together before the con started. And so we would go to cons in places that we'd never been before, and then try and get out and explore a little bit. And so it came from all of our discussions about the things that we were afraid of for our kids, the things that we were hopeful about as Americans, and all of this kind of anxiety in the air about sort of re-examining American identity, what makes us who we are. And so ultimately what we landed on, and what the story is about, is it's a rejection of the idea of isolationism, not just in a sort of national geopolitical way, but in a personal way. It's about the fact that what makes America special is that we're all so different, and that together, being stuck in it together, allows us to be better and reach higher than we could apart from one another. But right now, there's such a pull towards, provincialism, towards being territorial, towards division from some of the loudest voices out there, that, we really feel like it's just the most divisive moment possible. So the book, it's on the one hand, we wanted to do something that our kids could enjoy reading, where it's not a kid's book. It definitely has like a PG-13 sort of rating. But at the same time, it's like over the top Land of the Lost kind of Jurassic Park adventure, where the characters are invited into this America that's been a mystery for 20 plus years. And they get in there and they encounter, terrestrial fish monsters and sci-fi wonders. And every zone they go through, all the different territories are wildly different than the last one. So it's almost like this journey into the heart of mystery to find out what happened to the country and to get back to the sort of founding principles that make us special and who we are. So it's a really special book to all of us. And the fact that it's gone over so well, and that, it's become such a kind of runaway surprise hit, really means a lot. So yeah, we're just thrilled to be a part of it.
Cool. Charles, there's a lot of research that goes into this kind of a book.
Yeah.
It's very rooted in lots of really cool science, but also speculative science fiction. So, where do you guys get, that sort of information?
Scott and I, and of course Camo, we're all students of America. And one of the big elements of Undiscovered Country is taking American things we're really familiar with and twisting them and making them a little different. So for example, there's a bit where, the space shuttle Atlantis comes flying into an action scene, but it's been turned into a Zeppelin, like it's got big balloons on top. And there's a version of Uncle Sam that runs around in the book. There's the main villain is called the Destiny Man, like Manifest Destiny. So American pop culture, history, ideology, all of that is a big part of it. And so is technology and technological progress. And so to research the book, we've done everything from just knowing history and reading history to also, we were fortunate there's a guy in particular that he's actually Scott's neighbor, who is a retired CIA person, and he told us about an idea that the United States government has wargamed for a long time called Fortress America, which is basically the real world version of what we've set up in Undiscovered Country. An idea where the United States would seal itself off from the rest of the world, and how would it do it logistically, how would it survive, how would it become self-sufficient. And so as part of that, we got to go to this place called DARPA, which is the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency in Washington, D.C., and meet the people who make the super, like, incredibly advanced technology. And so they spoke to us for, I don't know, several hours. We got to just ask them whatever questions we wanted about the crazy things they're making, the like laser guns and super tanks and whatever. And really helpful things too, like, DNA-based vaccines and beautiful stuff. And that a lot of that is in the book and has really informed it. So a lot of even the craziest concepts in the book come from real world analogs.
Right. Cool. I mean, it's interesting, the stuff, all this stuff rooted in American, American history, American culture. In Camo, so we'll talk to you about that. I mean, you live in Italy, you've grown up in Italy. I mean, I've known you for many years. Your English has always been tremendous, but but how do you, as an artist, is that informing like the decisions that you're making in terms of your approach to this? Are you approaching it the way you always would? I mean, speak to us a little bit about your involvement and what you're doing in the project.
Yeah, I guess this project feels different, from all the other things that I've done over the years. I mean, like, long time ago, I did this book called Vertigo Pop Bangkok, set in Bangkok, and I never traveled to Bangkok. So I took information of books and traveling, magazines and all that, all the jazz. That was even before Google Images was there. So it was pretty hard to do research. But, apparently readers told me that I did like a very good job. So, it's part of the process, of like trying to come up with the good things. It's not much different to do Star Wars, you have to do a lot of research, and luckily enough, when you have like a great team, like we are, like good editor, good writers, like everything that goes on the plate, it's up for discussion, and you can change and do other versions, but ultimately I really feel like same as Charles and Scott, I'm one of the three main architects of the book. And not being American, it might feel a little different from a reader's perspective, but it feels great to me. I've been, knowing and coming to America for so many years, doing conventions, and my point of view on American culture and mythology is definitely different from people from America. But I think that's a good part of this teamwork, and I was kind of blown away when we did that panel. It was New York Comic Con last year, when you told me that, and you wanted, definitely wanted like a non-American artist for this book, and that made perfect sense to me. I told Charles and Scott that like when I first came to America, I remember I was impressed by the Hoover Dam, for example. Was traveling a little bit outside San Diego, and there's definitely a few things from my travels that caught my eye, but I haven't gone over all of America, so there's a few things I know better than others, but ultimately it's taking those elements and making the best out of them and mixing them with all the craziness that comes with the book, crazy ideas. That's one thing that I always love, coming out with like cool visuals and stuff that for example, the Destiny Man. That was basically very easy to do because the simple description and a few, ideas and references that Scott and Charles threw at me made it very easy for me to come up with like a cool astronaut with like, neon horns, animal horns thing, those simple elements spark an immediate image in my mind. And, then it's just a matter of like putting it on paper, but that's the easy part.
Right. Yeah,
Scott, you really came up with the basic concept for the Destiny Man's look, like, and why don't you sort of say what you were thinking when you wanted him to be that way? Because it worked it worked really well.
Thanks. Well, I mean, there was definitely like a whole team effort, but I think part of it for us was that we wanted the feel when you open the book to be that it's this recombinant, kind of wondrous and terrifying remix of all kinds of Americana. So that legends and folklore and things that are, iconic to American identity, from, the Wright brothers plane to, like Charles said, the space shuttle, but also folk elements or things that are kind of almost subliminal, like you know, the idea of deer heads on the wall, or, you know, the kind of space imagery that we all grow up with of the man landing on the moon, Neil Armstrong on the moon. All of that stuff is kind of remixed into our biggest fantasies in the book, and also the kind of most nightmarish figures and moments of the book too. So the Destiny Man, as the kind of big villain of the book, is this like 10-foot tall, almost inhumanly large being who rides on this like on top of the space shuttle, and essentially has this black astronaut costume and neon horns, like antlers that come out of it, and has one hand that almost looks like it's mutated into kind of an animal claw. So he's almost this black god of the plains, this sort of strange deity that walks in the wastelands of America and seems to rule over everything with kind of an iron fist. So the same way we have like the character that's leading our team forward is this mysterious Dr. Sam Elgin, who thinks that he's the figure Uncle Sam. He looks a lot like him, but he's, you know, clearly sort of sun-baked and crazy in the first in the first arc. But everything is this kind of remixing of American culture and American elements into something fresh and new and scary and you know, and wondrous also.
Yeah, I wasn't prepared for how wide-ranging and kind of far out it was, and I remember even it was probably around this time last year that we were trying to get issue 1 together, and that was like a big thing. Was like Camo was bringing all this really cool, weird stuff, but you guys just kept saying, you know, that's really weird, but like we're talking like weird, you know, like really like pushing. Which was interesting, but you know, when you have a good team of people, it makes it good because it's just very like lots of back and forth and people sending, you know, images and sending, you know, all kinds of inspirations and that sort of stuff. So yeah, so Camo, I mean, you're working with, you do all the pencils, you're working with a couple of finishers, right? I mean, what would you consider that?
I'm basically doing layouts, which is kind of like loose pencils, not as tight as pencils, but still, you know, pretty. Everything that needs to be there is in there. Like background, expression, just. And then I have 2 finishers, Daniele Orlandini and then Leonardo Marcello Grassi, who took over from issue 4. They're both former students of mine, but they're great artists, and I couldn't find, you know, a more, you know, valuable companion for this book. And then, you know, they bring basically my layouts to life and, you know, do beautiful black and white. And then we got, you know, lucky enough to hire Matt Wilson to do colors. Who's a master. I mean, even the cover that we did for the Barnes & Noble edition, like he painted those incredibly beautiful clouds over the gate and over the helicopter that made me, you know, took my breath away basically. And you know, so Matt is a very essential part of the team too, because every page he has these palettes that are fantastic. And then I know, I remember we were discussing about like coloring the canyons, you know, like painted maybe like blue or green instead of like going yellow or orange, you know, to make them look even more weird than, you know, than it should be. And he basically nailed everything, you know. So Matt is fantastic. Like every time that a page turns in from him, it's a pure joy to me.
Yeah, Matt's amazing.
Did we mention Chris Crank too on letters?
He was your addition to the team, Charles.
Yeah, I worked with Chris on a book called or Crank. He goes by Crank. A book called Curse Word. It's a book published by Image, and he just was he was kind of what you want in a letter, which is first and foremost like Swiss watch reliable. Like, you know, you send like this stuff gets done. And on top of it, he's also a real artist at that very challenging craft. But he is, you know, he's fantastic. So what I guess the point is from Scott to Crank, even Will, everybody on the team is a real A-lister, and it's I think we're all bringing the best of our abilities. And you know, like Scott and I are both very sort of generous with a million ideas and trust each other a lot as co-writers, and that's not always an easy thing to do. But you know, we're I don't know, many issues in at this point, and it just everything's just, it's that well-oiled machine you want in a book like this, because it's hard to get there, but now everything's just going on all cylinders. It's great.
Right. Yeah, I think that's true of most series I've ever worked on. It usually takes 6, 7, 8 issues before you really feel like you're hitting it. I was hoping to share my screen with some of this covers, but I can't seem to, doesn't seem to want to work, but maybe they can help us sort that out. I mean, we touched on it a little bit, but I mean, you could all three comment on this. I mean, we're in this very crazy time, right? I mean, obviously, set out to write this, we never envisioned. I mean, even your wildest speculations, I think, probably fall short of what the reality's been for the whole world for the last, 6 months or more,
Yeah.
9 months. Maybe you can just talk a little about that, because we also, at least in America, live in this insanely polarized time, and it's, everything is very like red state and blue state and all these things. And I mean, how is it navigating those kinds of waters, like as it's happening, rather than just being a writer getting to kind of write about it? What's it like to sort of live it and write it? Scott, you want to start that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think it's really strange because on the one hand, I think the things that people assume make the book feel resonant or timely, like the fact that the book is essentially about a pandemic that causes us to retreat from the world stage and then kind of fracture into different groups that have different opinions on how to handle it. And eventually we're banned from everywhere because of our handling of it. I mean, those elements that feel weirdly of the moment actually aren't the things that I think for Charles and I make it feel is resonant, even though they're the things that kind of get picked up over and over again by comics news sites and things like that about how strangely like the news the book is, except on steroids. Mm-hmm. For us, I think the thing that's really, again, personal about it, or that's the driving emotional engine, is this belief or this hope, rather than the fear of kind of how fractious and divided and entropic everything feels right now in terms of everybody falling into their kind of insulated groups. The book really is about the hope that we can kind of return to our founding principles and find a way to make it through together, in that way. So it feels at once kind of spooky to be writing something that has echoes, I think, in a literal way in the world, but feels inspiring to be working on something ultimately that's about the very thing that we think is most important to remember in times like these.
Mm-hmm. Has it impacted, Charles, like your actual process? I know you guys used to meet up a lot and sort of,
Yeah, I mean, it has. I mean, we would, and it was something we both really enjoyed. We would meet up, depending on what we're working on, pretty often. Not every week, but a lot of weeks we would usually go. We live sort of at different parts of New York, and so we would kind of meet in the middle at this town and have lunch and work at a bookstore, and it was great because you could, first of all, like writers and artists and editors in this business, we're not always social people. We don't always get to spend time with other people, and so it was a chance to just hang out as friends, which was obviously great. But there's just something that happens when you're in person and you're sparking off each other, and you've got a whiteboard and you've got the physical tools of work. Make new things happen. And so to take that away, it's definitely been an adjustment. We have, it still works. We still, you adjust, everybody adjusts, but it's like, again, it's sort of just to sort of echo what Scott was saying, like it's underscoring the themes of the book. Like it is not as good when we're isolated and apart as it is when we're together, when we're working along the same path. So, right. It's fine. I'm just, I have a beautiful writing setup. It's a great place. It's lovely, but I definitely would not mind, driving to meet up with Scott and hang out at the bookstore for a little while.
I hear you. It looks like I can maybe share my screen. So real quick, if you want to ask questions, I think you can put them into the chat and ask the questions, and we'll take some Q&A after we're done here. So Camo, if I can get my screen here working, I'm like clacking away like an old man on my keyboard here, but we can take a look at least at some of the Destiny Man, and also like just the process of this cover that Barnes & Noble was gracious enough to help us put together here is sort of it's like an amalgam of some of the other stuff that you had done, and then Matt Wilson really like ties it all together. So let me just see if we can get that to work. I mean, when you approach the covers, Camo, what's your sort of guiding principle when you start doing that?
Well, first of all, aside from second and third and fourth printing, covers, like I basically decided to use only white, red, and blue, and black, of course, kind of like to be, in line with Undiscovered Country and its main theme, which is America. So like a limited palette, and sometimes I push the white, sometimes I go more towards like red, covers. But most of the times I try to find a striking image that, for example, for the Destiny Man, I knew from the very beginning that he had to be on the cover and that his antlers would have been like a big element on the book. But, his design is like so cool alone that, itself that, the Las Vegas throne that he sits on, also, later on, it's kind of like very, very easy to turn it on to what I think is a cool image. And yeah, then it's basically trying to find the right atmosphere that some of these covers combined together can summon on the cover. And when we did the reprints, we got Matt Wilson coloring all the images, and so for the Barnes & Noble one, we took basically...
Can you see this image, this stuff, Kamo?
I can, yeah. The first one on the left is the regular cover.
Yeah, so you can see that
with the first EP, Undiscovered Country, which is also going to be a poster inside the Barnes & Noble edition.
Yeah.
So you can find it in the Barnes & Noble one. And,
so we had a promo image that we had worked on.
Yeah.
Originally,
for previews, I think that was on the cover.
That's the original, right?
Yeah, that was one for it was for a poster that.
It was for the poster that the Image released for the San Diego Comic-Con last year, I think, and also on the cover of previews, which was a very cool thing.
Yeah, right.
Isn't it? Well, God, it's only been 1 year. That's crazy.
It is. It feels like a lot. A lot has happened.
Do you have the cover of the Barnes & Noble one and show what Matt did?
Like throw that up in a second. But so then, one of the subsequent printings of the first issue was
beautiful.
Was this, which we wanted. Yeah, I think the brief was kind of an Apocalypse Now, really Apocalypse Now sort of vibe.
Yeah, very Apocalypse Now, I can say.
So when Barnes & Noble approached them for this thing, it was like, all right, well, let's try to take some of these elements and, really push it. And originally, I think it was really just like, it was really kind of just like a little bit of a mashup of all that. But then, as you were saying earlier, we sent it to Matt, and, this like is the result. Can I get this to go full screen? When
I had the idea of like doing the mix between those two covers, I did a quick mock-up, with my basic skills of Photoshop and sent them to Matt. And then he came up with this, which is honestly, a jaw dropper. It's fantastic.
I think everybody who knows Matt Wilson's work would say that he paints the best skies in comics.
Yeah.
And that is a perfect example, whether it's sunsets or clear blue skies or cloudy days, whatever, it's always perfect. The light, the way he uses the light and shapes everything, it's unbelievable.
Yeah. That source of light behind the flag is like so perfect. And everything in this cover is absolutely beautiful. So.
Yeah, Matt's like a really good follow on Instagram. He does a lot of tracking with his wife, and he has a drone that he takes a lot of photos with and stuff, and he just has some amazing photography that he comes back with, which he doesn't necessarily. I mean, I think he might use some of it to turn it into certainly inspire him to do certain things, but it's great. He's a real joy to work with. So. Maybe I can stop sharing my screen. I'm sorry, they put the least technical dude in charge of all this here. So there we go. So we're kind of we've been at like 27 minutes now. So if we have questions, we can take them, or we can just keep yammering on.
Well, let me just say that it was like a real pleasure and honor to get to do this Barnes & Noble edition. I'm not saying this because we're here and talking about it, but honestly, when we got the news, I was like really, really, really impressed. We knew at that time, we knew that the book was going really well. and the first trade paperback was going to put out by Image, but. And then this makes it even more terrible for me. If I think about not being able to be there and do the signing, and because of the situation, yeah. Well, next time.
Yeah, cool.
It'll be good.
All right, they're digging up some questions. I told my dad to ask some questions, so here they should be coming in a second.
Be like your dad and my mom.
It's great, but. Let's see what we got here. Oh, here we go. Oh, wait.
Just if we can just say thank you again to everybody not only watching, but honestly, like, when you do an indie book with people that you enjoy working with, you never know how it's going to go, especially one that's kind of as bombastic and over the top as this one. But
right.
All indie books are personal projects, you never do it otherwise. And the fact that you guys have helped make this one something that we can do for such a long time and really try and do 50 issues of it, and travel through the whole mysterious United States and get to the ending that Charles and I came up with when we first plotted it. And we're like, if we can do this, it'll be like 4 years of writing, but maybe we can get there together. The fact that looks like a real prospect right now means the world. So just thanks for supporting this. We promise to keep giving it our all, and it gets better as it goes. And cool. I just feel lucky to work on it.
All right. No, for sure, man. All right, I got one. Okay, so Luther Collins says, hey, guys, any new information on the film or TV show version of Undiscovered Country? Much love from Cincinnati. I've got issue 1 signed and framed.
Fantastic. So the film rights to Undiscovered Country were acquired by New Republic Pictures, who are awesome. The most recent film they had out was 1917, but they've done a lot of really cool movies that you definitely would know, Black Swan, like lots of great stuff. And so they have been working to develop the movie with us. And Scott and I have had the challenge of taking, a 50 sort of planned 50 issue comic book series that's going to be published in single issue increments over 3 to 4 years and turning it into a 2-hour movie. And so it's been a real challenge, but a fun one. And that's what we spent a lot of those bookstore days I mentioned, like trying to do that and break it down. So the current status of it, it's probably violates NDAs or whatever, but Scott and I have a very detailed breakdown of the film that is over with New Republic, and we hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll be going to script soon. We were lucky to be asked to write the script for the film. And it's just a huge, everything Scott just said about how lucky we feel about this book, getting the reception it has is one thing, but also knowing that somebody thinks it's cool enough to make it into a movie, and also having, Camo's designs and Scott and my ideas, like we're the people who are shaped it into the film, is like, it doesn't get much cooler. So that's all the news there is. Obviously there's not a lot of film production right now in general. But hopefully when the world reopens a little bit, one of the first things we'll all get to see is Undiscovered Country. We'll see.
It's a 4-hour movie. It's gonna be. No, it's a thrill. Yeah, and it's a great experience, and New Republic has been fantastic with us, so we're excited.
All right, here we go. We got
our notes, and we're going back to them drastically next week because it's gonna be good.
Because it's got a fairly robust cast of characters in the comic, so it's definitely going to be. It must be difficult to kind of manage all of that,
Yep, it is challenging. Lots of very elaborate diagrams on whiteboards and. Yeah.
Well, the coolest thing about it, honestly, is the best problem to have is like too much story, and I think. Yeah, it's tricky only because we have so much that we want to do in the comic book series, and then to compress it even into the deal that we have with them is to do the first film, but to plan it almost as a trilogy of films. So we have more room than just one movie to do all of it. But the trick is honestly, editing, because there's so many things we want to get to, and so many lands coming up in the book, and so many characters we're excited about that. It's more a process of paring down and restraining ourselves, which is a good problem to have.
Right. Well, it's too bad you don't know any good editors. Okay, so we got one here. Twiggy. I think that's my dad's handle on Instagram. Will there be of Undiscovered Country? Maybe you can just talk about the length or about the plans going forward. If you want to use it to talk about that.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, we had two plans. One plan was like, if it didn't go great, or if the market wasn't there for a book that like this, then we were going to try and do 3 arcs, and do maybe somewhere between, I mean, a little more than that, but we were really hoping for moderately maybe 20, 25 issues. But the real goal, if we had the room, was to play out the whole story, show all these kind of cool tributaries with the different characters, and do this really robust exploration, not only of the America itself and the land and sort of, the active exploration through it, but more of a deep dive into how it became what it is, all kinds of things. So that was always the hope, was to be able to do 50 issues or so. And so right now, with the way everything is gone, we're looking really good, and we're confident that we'll be able to do that. So yeah, 50 issues monthly. I mean, it's a real 4 to 5 year gig. So we're really excited about it.
Yeah.
Camo, or do you feel like you're going to be drawing all of those? I mean, I've worked on series where the people draw them all, the artists, or
yeah. Yeah, that's the plan for sure. Actually, I remember when Charles and Scott approached me to draw the book. I remember the option was, maybe 6 issues. There was like a short
mini in the very first version.
And I said, well, that's fantastic. That's the best deal. And then they told me, well, like we got so many good materials here that, it's going to be way more than that. And I was like, okay, then that was 25. And then I think it was in New York last year. Then I heard that it was going to be over 25, but I'm having a blast, honestly. And, I'm here for the long run. So, 50 is great. But I done long runs on series, and that doesn't scare me. Like, as long as there's like this good energy and this good flow and teamwork and reaction from readers is the way it is. Yeah. But there's really, like as Charles was saying, it doesn't get cooler than that.
Charles, what do you see? Like, I mean, can you tease the next sort of arc at least, maybe? I know you're sort of...
Yeah, I mean, we're deep into it now. And so as I think Scott mentioned earlier, like the idea is that the United States has been divided into 13 zones, and each zone is very much like almost a different version of an American experiment. And so the zone where our expedition is shot down is sort of an experiment into anarchy and anything goes, and like wild creativity to almost a negative level. And savagery and all those things, all of which are kind of part of the American character in many ways. Mm-hmm. And so the new zone, the second zone, the first zone is called Destiny, the second zone is called Unity. And our characters make it there at the beginning of the second arc, which starts with issue 7. And Unity is a zone that focuses more on American progress through technology and innovation, like the things that have made America what it is via the great minds and great, again, innovation and struggle and sacrifice to work hard and use our minds to make this nation into something special. And because it's Undiscovered Country, and it's not just like, everything's great, it also explores the dark side of that, of putting technology and innovation sort of at the pinnacle above everything else. And like, there's nothing else that matters, because obviously there's a cost to that. And so the second arc has a very new aesthetic. If the first arc is basically in sort of the California, Nevada region of America, this new one's in the Pacific Northwest. So it has a totally different look. Camo's done an amazing job designing everything. And we get to explore a new set of feels and themes. Like if the first was more like, crazy adventure, Mad Maxy stuff, this is much more of like a sort of a science fiction horror feel. And then the third zone will be something different, and the fourth zone will be something different. And we'll get to explore the national character of these places while we are also exploring the story and the themes of the book. It's really, the engine of the zones is a really cool way to keep everything fresh for readers. Every 6 issues you get a totally new feel.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's smart. I mean, you have to build these books these days with that sense of, like an out that's satisfying to readers in case you have to take it, and if not, then you guys have just no limit to the idea, so you just kind of keep it rolling, Yep. So all right, so we got we're probably wrapping up here pretty soon, but you answered this a little bit, but I'm always curious about this. So Alex GS, what was the spark for Undiscovered Country? But we talked a little bit about that, but maybe is it the sense of, do you recall a moment or a thing when, does one of you pick up the phone and say, oh my God, I have it? Or is it really just that, like, kind of organic that, is it just sort of batting stuff back and forth? Or at what point what point do you even come up with the title and say, yeah, that's the title, like this is what we're doing, kind of thing?
I remember you saying the title.
Yeah, I think it was over a fire pit. Don't you remember? Like there was one of those late nights we were like sitting out.
It was out I think it was out by you and Beacon, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Oh,
it was. That's all right. Whatever. But yeah, it was. We sat out by the fire and we were having whiskey and we were just talking about this idea. And I know that one of the big sparks, and you should say more about it, Scott. But one of the big things is we really wanted. Scott and I've been friends for a long time. We've both done, massive projects and superhero comics and Star Wars and all these huge things. And what we wanted to do was a book that felt like it had an idea that was big enough for us to both have like a lot to sink our teeth into and sink our minds into and have fun with. And this immediately felt like an idea that had that level of scope. So I think, and we talked about a million things, but this is the one that really felt like we would both be able to, do a ton with it.
Mm-hmm. And you would work with Camo on Darth Vader, right? So you were sort of familiar with his work.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I did an issue of All-Star Batman with Scott. So that was when they approached me to work on the book. That was, no-brainer for me.
Yeah, and I remember young Camo coming and hanging around my office at the DC Vertigo offices, waiting for me to come out and let him in. Yeah, exactly.
You were probably 20 and I was probably 15.
Oh, yeah. I was 9 or 40 and you were 15. All right, let's see. Benny Blanco. Are these all real names? I don't know. What sort of, well, we talked a little bit about this too, but what sort of research did you do for the book? So we talked a little about that, but once you get into a series, like do you find, is it all kind of front loaded, all the stuff you're doing? Or for you, Camo, are you constantly image searching and generating stuff, or do you sort of do it all in the front and then you're just drawing off the material? Like, I mean, as like an artist, like how does that usually work? Do you save them all someplace and go back to it? I mean,
yeah, absolutely. I save images that I either find online or got from Charles and Scott. They're my main source for this book. And I keep the folder, which, they're gonna always gonna be useful for both the finisher and the colorist, because they're ultimately gonna work on the same material that I use, to spark those ideas.
Right.
And some of the things that are in the scripts I'm familiar with, and some others I'm not at all. So I want, things that come out of my pages to be as accurate as possible, from as close as possible from Charles and Scott's ideas, and from the imagery, the Americana imagery that readers, will have to find on the page. So I use those images as a base, and I try to come up with something that resemble the original source, but also takes kind of everything in a different direction, which is usually weirder than the original material. But
so yeah, I think so. We can wrap it up. I don't know. Do you guys anybody, you have like closing words you want to share, everybody, quick, and then we can pull out here and get out? What do you think, Charles? What do you think?
I'm sure we could all find something to say if I know less. I just want to echo the gratitude because it is very hard to launch a creator-owned comic book series at any time. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what other books you've done. Like launching an original concept is really hard. And so, and if you're lucky, they you get to do 6 issues. You get to finish like the first chunk of it. And so to have something that's received at this level, that is an idea that's entirely ours, that we're making, and as weird and crazy as we want, like it just doesn't, it is very, very rare. And so, and that's because of retailers like Barnes & Noble and comic book shop owners. It's because of fans. It's because of, people who have reviewed the books. It's, it is very much everybody gets behind an idea and then it's all of ours at the same time. And so I am just very grateful to get to do this book with my good friends and make this beautiful thing. And we'll get to do it the way we want to do it. So that's the main message I want to send is thank you.
Terrific. But Scott.
Yeah, I mean, Charles kind of took the words out of my mouth, but what I'd say also is just as a thank you to Barnes & Noble, one of the things that they wanted us to point out, and we're happy to point out, is that they do have an exclusive edition of Volume 1 of the book, which we're really, really proud of. It has that beautiful cover that Will posted earlier with the sky all glorious by Matt Wilson, but it also has a fold-out poster of the cover as well. So it's loaded with some cool extras, and yeah, I mean, they've been great to us, so we appreciate you supporting them and going out and picking up the book. And above all, like Charles said, just thank you for letting us take this ride together. We promise to like give it our best all the way through the end.
Mm-hmm. Right. Camo, anything, parting words of wisdom from you?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that thanks to these guys and to you and to the work that we did together, I got my first nomination to the Eisner. We didn't win.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
That was something that believe it or not, you get older, but you still get emotional about those things as a fanboy, and after 20 years, when we heard that we were going to be running for Best New Series, I was like, really? I mean, it must mean that we're doing something good here. So, aside, together with the positive reviews and the sales and everything, the good buzz that the book is generating, we're having a great time. And so we want to do our best to keep it going. And so thanks again for making this all possible. Like, we're blessed and honored.
That was a good plug. Well done. Yes, wrap it up and again say thank you to the fans, to Image Comics, all the people over there that work so hard for us, and of course Barnes & Noble for doing this event and doing this amazing cover. It's available right now at bn.com. You can get the exclusive one, and hopefully you'll like it. It's not the same as maybe seeing us in person and getting it signed, but it's a little something special that hopefully you'll enjoy and love the series too, and continue to follow it. So I guess that's about it for us, but thank you so much, and please stay safe out there, keep wearing your masks, and we'll get through this together, okay?